This is the Financial Beat, helping you hit all the right notes in your financial plan. So sit back as we strike up the band. The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler starts now.
Welcome to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. I'm Ron Stutz, and boy, we're going to have a good time today. We're going to talk about some good things, all having to do with getting you to and through retirement. We'll also discuss some bad things, some unfortunate things that happen to people, and how you can avoid those. Hey, Logan, how's it going?
Ron, I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to a great show here, and you already got me a little hyped up for it, so I'm ready.
Man, we got some exciting conversations ahead of us here, but let me give everybody your phone number. Tell them how to get in touch with you first. 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN. That is your number to call if you'd like to have a discovery meeting with Logan. We'll explain that as we go along today. And hard to believe, we're at the beginning of another month here.
I know, time is flying by.
where in the world is this year going? It's just amazing.
Yeah, they always say time flies, right, when you're having fun, but it is amazing how fast time's going nowadays.
Yeah, and time will slip on by you and kind of get away from you if you procrastinate. A lot of people procrastinate. A lot of people listen to this show every week and haven't gotten around to calling your office to set a time to have a conversation with you. But there are lots of reasons why people don't visit a financial advisor. And so, we normally talk about the reasons why people should come see you. But today, let's talk about the reasoning that people have for not getting in touch with you. And I guess, the first thing would be probably a lack of trust. They just don't trust not just you, but any financial advisor.
Yeah, it is an interesting job. I always tell clients where it's like one of those jobs where, meeting with people, you have to discuss a lot of information, right? Yeah. And you have to, and I always tell clients, like I ask a lot of personal questions, and we talk a lot about, personal, a lot of financial questions. And it is a lot of, sometimes it's not always the funnest things to talk about for some clients, right? Or for some people. And one of the things I think is very important more than anything I always talk about, and we talk about in the show all the time, Ron, is that communication and that being able to, investments and things like that are great for the advisor. But I mean, having that line of communication where you feel like you can be open is super important, right? And I think that comes down to, like you said, trust. And I think there's certain people out there where, they maybe have never met with a financial advisor, and they might be fearful of it because, like you said, maybe they're not sure if they could trust this person, right? Whether it's a he or she. And I think it's really because you hear a lot of people out there about high pressure, right? You've seen some people on TV or advertisements where it just sounds like very like lock the door. We call it high pressure sales, right?
Yeah, really.
And I don't know about you, Ron, but I really don't like to be pitched anything, right? No. And I think that's what a lot of people are relating to when they think of a financial advisor is that, that person and that, that is very pushy in one direction, whether they're pushing, it could be stocks. Everybody needs to have all their money in the market, need to be really aggressive, or it's all your money should be so conservative. It all should be in annuities, right? And I think a lot of people don't understand the value that could be brought by looking at the financial plan, right? And I think that's where the difference in meeting with a financial, product salesman or a financial planner really does have a difference. And the conversation, you typically can tell right away what type of person you're meeting with pretty early on.
Well, you and I have talked about this before, how you're not pushy and you're not going to put pressure on anybody, and there's not going to be any salesmanship involved when somebody meets you for the first time. I mean, my goodness, you're just going to have a conversation and get to know each other.
Yep, absolutely. That's what I always say. Like, how can I give you any advice? Right, we just met. Right, I don't know anything about you yet. Yeah. And like you said, it's just really a discovery meeting is always just kind of a getting to know you and you getting to know us. Because like I said, that I think building that trust relationship on my end and on your end is super important, just to make sure we're all on the same page and to make sure that our firm is a good fit for you to help transition you into retirement and get to and through retirement.
Well, it's all about relationships, as we've discussed many times before. And those people who use those tactics you were just talking about are generally just pushing some kind of a one-size-fits-all generic retirement planning. And there shouldn't be anything like that, because we're all different.
Absolutely.
Hey, another reason that people don't visit a financial advisor is, they have the idea that it's going to cost them a lot of money, just to talk to you. I would call that perceived cost, and that keeps people from making that phone call.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people aren't aware of how financial advisors charge fees or how they're billed or how they, what the cost overall is. And like you said, there's always cost of doing business, right? If we hire someone to do something, we understand, or at least most of us do, that there's going to be a fee or some type of charge or someone's going to get paid, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's okay. I think a lot of people don't mind for someone to get paid, but a lot of them aren't really sure how they're supposed to pay a financial advisor, right? And like you said, a lot of people might think, well, why would I pay a financial advisor? It seems very, very expensive, right? And a lot of the times I tell clients there's so many things that having that real deep discussion and looking at the long-term financial plan, there can be significant gains by paying a financial advisor. And I'm not just talking about returns, right? A significant value brought to the plan that sometimes could save lots of money. Just the other day I was having a conversation with a client where I call them a client now because they decided to come on board and went through our process and was just a really great fit. And it was funny because just talking with them and kind of going through their plan, and they were 60 years old, kind of getting ready to look at retirement over the next 2 or 3 years. And it was funny because just simply talking about, the market and investments and all that, but transitioning over to they were a perfect candidate based off their income brackets and their assets where Roth conversions made sense, right? So showing them kind of the plan we were able to do, it was funny because on just Roth conversions alone, the estimated tax savings was going to be over $50,000 potentially over their retirement, right? So it's well, just right there, that was probably worth the cost of meeting with us, right? So I think just kind of showing the value you could bring. Yes, investment returns and all that stuff are great, but looking at the core planning that a lot of advisors can bring to the table, it typically well outweighs the cost of, paying for a financial advisory fee or a management fee or however advisors charge. And I think that's one of the things, those of you out there listening that were thinking about coming in to meet with us or meeting with an advisor, is just kind of understanding how they get paid, right? I think we've talked about that a lot on the show, about a lot of the different ways that you can get paid. But I think it's very important to understand that a lot of the times a financial advisor should be able to well outweigh the value, like I said, talking about returns and things like that. I've had a client where they were in a mutual fund that was basically like an S&P type fund, and it was underperforming just a benchmark of the other S&P funds by I think on average of about 4%. And so it's that's quite a bit, right? So when you look at that over a 10-year period or a 20-year period, that was a lot of money, tens of thousands of dollars that potentially were left on the table there. So I think just kind of understanding the overall value that a financial advisor could bring to your plan.
Yeah, and let me remind everybody, if you just joined us, you're listening to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, Regari Financial. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call if you'd like to have a conversation with Logan. It will be a very pleasant, easygoing conversation, just like the one we have here on the radio here every week. Hey, we're talking about why people don't visit a financial advisor, and I guess we should just face it. There are lots of people out there who are maybe accustomed to doing everything for themselves. And they don't want to rely on anybody for any kind of help, and they just have a do-it-yourself mentality. I guess that's the reason that some folks don't call.
Yeah, that is a reason, right? There's some people out there that maybe some people have accumulated massive amounts of wealth and have done a really good job. And like I always say, they've really put themselves in a situation and maximized their situation during their working years. I've seen it time and time again, and it never ceases to amaze me. Some people out there had a very high income and saved a lot of it, right? And some people didn't have a super high income, but they lived below their means. They put money away, and they did the right things over a period of time, and they're sitting there with a pretty healthy nest egg. And now is typically when I see clients transitioning to retirement planning, where I always say, right, what got you to retirement doesn't always get you through retirement. And that's typically where I see some clients a little bit more hesitant to do that themselves because they want to make sure they're getting that proper advice, that proper guidance that an advisor, typically can bring to the table.
Yeah, and a misunderstanding an advisor's role is what some folks do. They just don't really understand how the process works and what it is that you do and how you can help them.
Yeah, that's true. It's funny because we feel like we do a really good job, I should say, of really explaining the value of a financial advisor and what our role is. And I think it's not the client's fault, right? I think it's the advisor's fault for not being able to articulate what it is that their job is here, right? What is our value proposition we bring to the table? And, how do we get paid? What's the process look like? And what can you expect, right? I think it's funny because some clients have no idea when they're even going to hear from their advisor, right? And I find that pretty comical, right? They're paying, and yet have no idea when you're going to hear from them. So I think, having that, so we have a service calendar, we call it, where, a client, depending on their situation, might have a set quarterly call. They might have a set annual call or a biannual call, depending on the situation and the client. But I think just having an idea of when you're going to hear from your advisor and what the relationship looks like is super important. And I think a lot of people just think of the advisor. Remember the old school days, Ron, where you had a broker, right? You called them up and what's the stock of the day, right? Or what's the mutual fund of the day? And that's how I think some people view it still, as far as that transactional type business.
Yeah.
But I found, most people, obviously we manage money, we deal with the market, we deal with annuities, insurance products, all of the stuff. But I think a lot more people now are looking for that family advisor that could be there to help guide them and their families through retirement, right? They want to know that, hey, are we looking at those 5 pillars of retirement planning? What's our income plan look like? What's our investment plan? What are our philosophies? What's our risk tolerance? Taxes, are we looking at, is there any types of tax advantages we could be doing with our plan via Roth conversion, or whether that's Roth contributions or, charitable donations, whatever it is, looking at healthcare, legacy and estate planning, all of those things, not just here's a stock, right? I think in today's world, a lot more people, especially the clients we deal with that are approaching retirement, they're looking for someone to be able to give them that comprehensive plan that's going to be able to guide not only them, but their spouse, and then also transition that wealth to the next generation, right? So I think it's super important now to understand what the advisor's role is, and also, what type of role you're looking for out of an advisor.
There's also one other category of folks out there, and I can certainly understand this. Some people have a fear of being judged. Maybe they're embarrassed and they don't want to share, the mistakes they've made in the past, or maybe the decisions they've made or not made, things they've done and not done. They don't want to come in and they feel like you're going to really give them a hard time over it, and that's not the case.
Yeah, I think it's funny because you're totally right, Ron. I always tell clients at the first meeting, I'll give you a glimpse of it now, or at the discovery meeting, I always say one of the processes of the discovery meeting is we ask for all financial statements, all investments, like tax returns, everything, right? Because if we're going to do a comprehensive plan, we got to be able to take the current information and be able to really reflect on what we currently have.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, I always tell them, like you said, Ron, this is not to pass judgment. Like, I think that's the biggest thing, is a lot of people are like, well, he's asking for my statements, and he's going to see I really lost my butt on this one stock, right? Or I pulled money out of my IRA last year when I shouldn't, and he's going to see that on my tax return, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And I always tell people, whatever's done is done, right? And I think it's funny because I have not had one person, and I mean this, I've met with a lot of people, I have not had one person come into our office that's never made a financial mistake, right? And including myself, right? I think it's funny because all of us have made a decision where we go, I shouldn't have done that, or I could have done this differently, right? Whether it's a big one or a small one, we're all guilty of it. So I always tell people the advisor shouldn't be there to pass judgment. What our job is to simply look at what you've accumulated, look at where you're at, look at maybe some mistakes you have made, but also looking at how can we make these decisions and make smarter decisions and more informed decisions moving forward, right? Over the next 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 20 years, what can we do to really bring value and to increase the plan's success moving forward? Whatever's been done in the past, right? Whatever's done last year, it's kind of hard to undo that, right? So we can now control what we are doing moving forward. And I think, this is a really good point here, I would say, Ron, to bring up, where, looking at what a financial advisor brings to the table. Again, a lot of you out there might be approaching retirement or close to retirement, or maybe even in retirement. And it's one of those things where you're going through what we call the changing of the tides, right? Where you're getting closer to a spot in your life where you've been accumulating assets, you've been putting money in a 401k, a TSP, 457, wherever it is. And now you're getting to a point where you're like, okay, there's a lot of decisions coming up, right? When do I take Social Security? What do I do with my 401ks? Do I have a pension? Do I take a lump sum or do I take payments, right? Taxes, how is that going to factor in? There's all of these types of decisions that are going to be coming up. And I think picking the right team and the right person to help walk you through that is super important. And that's part of what our team does here. We specialize in getting clients to and through retirement. So if you're out there and maybe, like we always say, maybe you got $300,000, maybe you got $3 million, and you're getting closer to retirement, and you're looking for a team to help transition you to and through retirement, give us a call. We offer a complimentary discovery meeting where you can sit down with myself and we can take a deep dive into your situation and see if we are the right fit, which we always say the right fit is so important. So again, it doesn't cost you anything. Come in, sit down, and just see if we're a good fit to work together and if our team's the one to help get you to and through retirement.
Logan's number at Regary Financial is 888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-7526. An easy way to remember it is by using the word plan, because that's something we all need. Logan Sadler is the Vice President and Chief Investment Officer at Regary Financial. A couple of convenient offices, one in Hemet, one in Redlands. Wherever you are in Southern California, you can have a discovery meeting with Logan. You can have a conversation with him on the phone or via Zoom, or maybe you might want to come into one of those convenient locations. It's totally up to you, and it's not going to cost you one penny and not going to obligate you to do anything to check him out. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call. Logan Sadler is the person you will actually talk to. He's not going to pass you off on anybody else, and that's the way it works. You're listening to The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. I'm Ron Stutz, and we will be right back in just a moment.
Are you worried about whether you're ready for retirement? Logan Sadler and the team at Regary Financial can help. Just text the word advice to 21,000 to take Regary Financial's free retirement roadmap checkup. Text the word advice to 21,000 and we'll send you a link to all of our free resources. From there, you can click on the button for the retirement roadmap checkup. You'll just have to answer a few questions and then you can see how prepared you are for retirement. This is a great starting point for people just starting to think about retirement. Text the word advice to 21,000 to get your free retirement roadmap checkup today. That's the word advice to 21000.
1, 2, 3, 4!
When musicians are performing, they typically need someone to count them into each song. Without that count in, the musicians might be out of sync and the song could fall apart. It's similar to your financial plan. All of your investments must be in sync, working towards your financial goals. Keep listening to The Financial Beat and learn how to make sure that your investments are playing together perfectly.
We're back now with more of The Financial Beat. Logan Sadler is here. He is at Regary Financial, serving you in Southern California. You can find out more about Logan by going to financialbeatradio.com, financialbeatradio.com. And there are other ways you can find out more about Logan other than listening to this radio show. There are podcasts out there, a whole bunch of them. So you can listen to some past shows as well, and YouTube videos all over the place. Logan, how do our listeners access all of that good information?
Yeah, for those of you that are checking out the channel right now and listening to the radio show, you can actually head over to The Financial Beat on any podcast platform. That might be Apple Music, Amazon, Spotify, wherever it is you download podcasts, and you can go over there. Again, type in The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. And like you were saying, Ron, there's quite a bit of episodes. I think we're over 115 now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And there's a lot of good information. One of them's bound to bring some value to your situation. So you can head over there, click subscribe, follow along, and that's updated weekly, as well as you can head over to the YouTube channel. So we have a lot of videos on there as well, update there weekly. So we do a new video each week on retirement planning, and they're typically between 3 to 5 minutes long, and a lot of them are just viewer questions or typical topics that a lot of you guys were asking about, like, how much should I have saved by age 60, or how do Roth conversions work, or when should I take Social Security? And going through a lot of those important questions a lot of you might have to just bring you some more value and some information for you to check out. So that's on the YouTube channel. Type in The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. Click like, subscribe, follow along, and also feel free to leave us some comments in there and let us know some other videos you might want us to tackle next.
Boy, I'm thinking about over 100 podcasts. We've done a lot of talking, haven't we?
A lot of talking, hours and hours.
Exactly right. Hey,
good thing we're good at that.
One more time, that phone number, if you'd like to get in touch with Logan Sadler, is 888-823-PLAN. Hey, let's talk about packing your financial suitcase. And a lot of people may be wondering, what in the world is he talking about there? But if creating a good financial plan is like packing for a trip, how can we be sure that our basic financial suitcase is packed as efficiently as possible? And one thing I think about when I think about travel, I can't help it. I always think about, what if they lose my luggage? Because it happens often. But losing your luggage when you're traveling is always a risk. How should you deal with lost luggage in the financial world?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great one. Like you said, nobody likes lost luggage, right? And depending on your risk of a particular investment, right, you could always lose money in one particular area, right? And that's why it's so important to have your money in different suitcases, as we'll talk about. And I think one of the biggest things is your financial luggage can get lost, right? And you're not completely out of luck unless you have other areas, right? When you lose your luggage on an airline, I mean, you'll get it back eventually, right? And I think sometimes that's pretty much how the market can work, is most of the time you're going to get your money back eventually, right? Of course, depending on what you're in. But I think that always, really kind of strives the case of making sure you are diversified. Having different investments in different vehicles to meet different goals can be very rewarding, and also can significantly improve a lot of the outcomes of your financial plan by having that proper layer of diversification. So if your luggage is lost, right, or if your temporary luggage is lost or volatile, you might have some other areas of your investment plan that are sustaining that, right, or maybe even doing better than what the other things are doing. So I think having that level of diversification is super important, so that way we don't lose our luggage.
Yeah, a lot of people have a big variety of suitcases, pieces of luggage that are different and different sizes, maybe for different piles of or whatever they're carrying around with them, clothes or whatever. Yep. But they're all, each one of these pieces is designed to accomplish a different goal for you. Why do you think it's logical to have your toiletries, for example, in a different suitcase from your clothes?
Well, yeah, I mean, because it's diversification, right? If that shampoo blows up, right, it's nice because, well, that's a bummer. But guess what? It didn't get all over my clothes, right? So having some things separated sometimes can be a good thing, right? And I think that relates to investments, right? I always talk about clients where they'll come in, and I see this time and time again, and it's okay. It's very common where clients will say, you know what, I have $100,000, right? And so you look at it, and the $100,000 is basically in very, very similar investments, right? Yeah. And I've seen it the same way with clients that have $1 million or $2 million or whatever the amount is. They might have a 60-40 mix, and 60% in the market, 40% in bonds, and that is basically their diversification level, right? That they don't have much more than that. But I always tell clients a lot of the times, not every time, but a lot of the times, people need more layers of diversification because different things are going on, right? We always talk about our physical house. So you draw a picture of a house, and there's 3 layers of it, right? I always talk about the concrete, which is the foundation, right? That's the principal protection. That's money that you don't want to lose any money on, right? And that typically could be CDs, money markets, and sometimes even annuities that are safe and guaranteed, or maybe even we're using that as the income side, right? Then you have that middle side, which is the walls, we call it. This is the second box. That's your alternatives, right? In there, you might want to use real estate. We have a lot of different REITs and real estate we use. Our clients might own real estate. That might be a good asset class there. Also, structured notes and other diversified investments that maybe when the market's going up and down, those aren't being as affected as much, or if at all, right? And then you have your top layer, which is the market. Now, that's the roof. You could diversify throughout the markets, right? There's the S&P, there's global, there's large cap, small cap, there's all different forms of the market. But having sometimes 3 or 4 different layers of diversification in there, and not just 2 asset classes, is typically a way to where you can really diversify a lot of risk out, and also sometimes in some areas maybe keep returns similar, or maybe even increase returns in certain cases, of course. But I think just understanding that it's okay to have different layers of diversification, because I always tell clients, it's okay, right? The traditional 60-40 portfolio, a lot of people don't have too much confidence in it. And that's why I think having your physical house in order is super important to understand where you currently lie with your diversification.
You're listening to The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, Regary Financial, and we're talking about packing your financial suitcase. A suitcase may, sometimes be referred to as maybe, not just a suitcase of money, but maybe a bucket of money. You have one bucket here and one bucket there, and, Logan Sadler can explain all of that to you when you talk to him. But if our volatile assets are represented by toiletries like shampoo, for example, that can explode, or maybe a top comes off a toothpaste tube or something and messes up your clothes, and so you want to keep it separated in some way, maybe not in a different suitcase, but at least in a plastic bag or something that's sealed. What represents our less risky assets in this whole financial analogy?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at your investments, right, some people don't want all of their money at risk, right? And it's funny for some advisors to even hear that, because we know, looking at the math, I mean, statistically, yeah, the market's probably one of the better places to be, if not the best place to be, over an extended period of time. But unfortunately, right, is everyone's different. And I think that's the biggest thing, is a lot of people aren't comfortable with all of their money at risk, as well as maybe they even shouldn't be, right? Because you look at a lot of the plans, and if you're really doing the analysis, sometimes having too much risk can definitely hurt the outcome of the plan, right, in some areas. So I think just kind of understanding where each person lies and understanding where you lie, because each of us are different, and it's okay to have some of our money that might not be growing as much, but is protected, right? And I think that's the biggest thing is some people are very, very, very pushy or pro-market, which is, again, is a great investment for most people, but it doesn't necessarily need to be 100% of your assets. And a lot of us have, we call it buckets, right? So you have, like you explained, you have 1 year or 3 year bucket, right? Maybe that's a bucket of money that you don't want to lose any money on. That's why you could use annuities or CDs or money markets, treasuries, maybe laddered bonds in some cases. I mean, those are things where it is principal protected, right? You're not looking at a lot of risk, and that's okay, right? If you have $1 million, maybe you put $300,000 in there of protection, right? Of course, depending on your situation. And then you have the other bits of your money that you're okay with taking a little bit more moderate risk on, because you know you have your short-term money ready to go, right? So I think it's okay to understand that each of us are different, and we all might be comfortable with different levers and different investments in our plan. And that's why I think they call it personal finance, right? Because all of our plans and all of our goals are typically a little bit different, and that's okay as long as you're getting a plan that's customized to your goals. And again, making sure you're able to look at it, which we like to show clients, Ron. I always tell people we could talk about it all day long, but it's nice to show you, hey, based off what you're saying, here's where we would allocate stuff, here's where your income would come from, here's when we would take Social Security, but also here's the effect of that. Here's the positive or negative effect of this current plan.
Mm-hmm. You can make it visual that way, and certainly that adds to the conversation that we're having. If you can point these things out, you could do that with a discovery meeting. You can get together with someone, get to know them quite well. They can get to know you, and that's really how it works. They decide if they'd like to work with you, and you decide if you'd like to work with them. It's all about relationships, as we discussed before. The number to call if you'd like to arrange a discovery meeting, discovery visit, I should say, 888-823-PLAN. I don't like to say meeting because I don't like meetings, to tell you the truth.
Sounds scary.
It's not like a meeting. It's really kind of a visit and a casual conversation. So, I like that a lot better than saying meeting. So 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN, your number to call for Regary Financial in Hemet and Redlands, wherever you are in Southern California. I hope you're having a good day today. You can make it better by placing a phone call to that number, 888-823-PLAN. Ron Stutz here along with the inimitable Logan Sadler, and there is more on the way.
Hi, I'm a cleverly devised personification of Wall Street. I'm one wild roller coaster ride away from wreaking havoc on your investments, and I love to mess with your emotions. If you're not properly diversified, you can bet I'll keep you up all night thinking about me. If you want to keep me off your mind, you really need a trusted advisor who'll look after your best interests. You also need a custom-designed financial plan that'll protect you from market volatility. Otherwise, when I take a plunge, I'll send you scrambling through your filing cabinet, hoping you were well prepared. Don't wait for turmoil to hit.
In Southern California, call Logan Sadler and the Regary Financial Team at 888-823-PLAN. That's 888-823-7526.
I'm telling you, who's on first, what's on second, I don't know's on third.
Do you know the fellow's name?
Yes.
Well, then who's playing first?
Yes.
I mean, the fellow's name on first base.
Who?
The guy on first base.
Who is on first?
Well, what are you asking me for?
If your head is spinning from confusing financial terms and data, clear up the confusion right here on The Financial Beat.
Welcome back to more of The Financial Beat. This is the radio show that helps you hit all the right notes in your retirement planning. And the beat goes on, as they say, every single week on this show. Logan Sadler also, in addition to being the host of the show, the star of the program, has podcasts all over the place out there, wherever you get your podcasts, and also a variety of YouTube videos out there. The number to call if you'd like to have a conversation with Logan is 888-823-PLAN. 888-823-PLAN. Call that number and you can arrange to have a conversation with Logan Sadler. We call it a discovery visit. He can take a deep dive into your financial situation, give you some ideas, answer some questions that may have been concerning you, and give you some answers to questions you didn't even know you needed to ask. It's very simple. Just call 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-7526, and you can arrange it. Remember, at Regary Financial, they have great partnerships with local CPAs, attorneys, real estate agents, mortgage lenders, even Medicare specialists. And at Regary, they can help offer well-rounded guidance in all things financial for their clients. Logan Sadler would love to meet you. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make it happen. And again, that's not going to cost you anything and not going to obligate you to do anything at all. Hey, let's talk about some statistics on today's show, specifically as it relates to retirement. And, you know, I read all this stuff over the past week, and I know you've been reading this too, but from various surveys that have been taken and studies, give us your thoughts on these retirement-related stats and what, if anything, should be done about them. Women are, let's say, about 27% more likely than men to have no retirement savings at all. First of all, do you believe that, and what can be done about it?
Yeah, I mean those. I don't know the exact numbers on it, but I know I've read different surveys and things like that out there where it does show that sometimes men have more of an interest in investments or financial planning or things like that. So that could make sense of why maybe some women out there might not have as much saved or if any saved in some cases. But with that said, I've also met with a lot of, for example, single women where they've never been married, and they've created massive amounts of wealth themselves. Right? I met with clients where they're single women and they're maybe 60 years old, 65, and they got $1 million, $2 million, $3+ million. So as you said there, it's only 27%. But I mean, I think when you look at that is a statistic that probably is close, where maybe some women don't have as much saved, or if at all, just because maybe that doesn't interest them. Right? It does show that some men might just have more of an interest in that topic, so that's why maybe they might have more saved than women. But like I said, definitely have seen some women do very, very well and are sharp as a tack when it comes to investments and retirement planning. So there's always exceptions, right?
Yeah. Here's another stat for you. 76% of baby boomers are not confident that they've saved enough for retirement. I would imagine that's true.
That's probably, pretty close. Yeah, I would say, because a lot of the people that come into our office, it's like, okay, one of our questions is, well, when were you thinking of, well, first off, how old are you, right? And they say 60, 55, 70, whatever age it is, right? And let's use an example of I'm 60. They say, well, we're kind of hoping to retire at 63 would be nice, right? Yeah. And by the tone of the voice, you could tell that they probably aren't as confident in saying that, right? They're hoping to retire at that age, but they're not necessarily sure if they could, right? And so I think that statistics bodes very well there, where a lot of people just aren't sure if they've saved enough, right? And I think when you look at it, everybody's heard, oh, you need $1 million to retire, or you need more than that because inflation, you actually need $3 million to retire, right? Or whatever the number is. And I think a lot of people aren't really sure where they stand confidently, right? Yeah. A lot of people could say, oh, I could retire now and I'd be fine, but they don't necessarily know, well, what would that look like, right? What type of income would you be stuck with? How long would it last? What type of situation we run into with long-term care, inflation, or all these other things. So I think that 76% is probably pretty close, where most people aren't necessarily confident enough in their retirement plan. And I think a lot of people is very important for you out there, if you're not working with a financial advisor, to get on board with one, right? Because I think it's one of those things where they'll help give you the confidence you need to feel confident in your retirement plan. If not, they'll help show you what we need to be doing to get that confidence.
There's so much uncertainty out there, and especially a lot of people really aren't confident that they actually know if they can retire or not. And there have been some cases, this doesn't happen a whole lot, but there have been a lot of cases where people come to see you for the first time, and you take a deep dive analysis into their financial situation, and you can pat them on the back and say, hey, you could retire 2 years ago if you wanted to.
It's funny you said that, because literally one of the people we're working with right now out there, who's actually a radio listener, her and her husband came in and they were 60, 62 and 68, and they were at a situation where it's like, you know what? We'd like he's already retired and she'd like to retire next year. And we were able to kind of run their numbers based off what their budget called for, the assets they had. And they had a little over $1 million, and they were at a situation where, based off their Social Securities, their income plan, their expenses, and things like that, we were able to put together a plan to really actually, overpass what they needed in retirement. So they would be just fine if they ended up pulling the plug and retiring now, and confidently, right? Being able to show them that, hey, if we did this, you got basically a 98% 1% chance of this working out, right? And so that's a pretty high chance. And so it's one of those things where it was able to give them the confidence to say, you know what, let's go ahead and do this and let's enjoy that next phase of retirement and know we did it. I know we're going to be able to do it confidently and securely throughout their retirement.
Boy, that's a really important word, confidence. And certainly you can be confident when you have more clarity about your situation.
Absolutely. I agree.
Here's another statistic for you. Nearly 1/3 of homeowners of retiring age still have mortgage debt. Do you find that to be true?
Yeah, it's probably pretty close, right? Because I think, and again, not necessarily that that's the end of the world, right? For some people, their goal was always to pay out the house, and they did it, and it's great. It might really alleviate some income that they might need in retirement, right? Because they don't have a $2,000 or a $3,000 a month mortgage or whatever it is. Now, with that said, though, Ron, there is some clients that we have out there where their mortgages are extremely high, right?
Yeah.
And they're getting ready to retire, and let's say they say, well, $5,000 a month is kind of what my portfolio and my Social Security and things like that would generate, but my mortgage is $3,200 a month, right? It's like, ouch, right? That's a large portion of our income going towards mortgages. So can we pay it off? Can we downsize? What are some situations here that would maybe help alleviate that situation, right? So I think sometimes, and again, I have some clients where their income's $10,000 a month and their payment's $1,800 a month, and they're going to be just fine, right? It's not a huge portion, and they're going to be just fine in their retirement. So I think just kind of finding out where you lie on that, because I think in some instances it could be kind of a deal breaker when it comes to can we retire, can we not? And then sometimes it might not even be a thought, right? It might not even be an obstacle to overcome at all. So I think just kind of seeing, again, what does your situation look like, and seeing if there's a way we could either pay it down, downsize, or maybe have to work a little bit longer to create some higher income.
You're listening to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler here. And again, if you'd like to get in touch with Logan Sadler at Regary Financial, here's the number, 888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-PLAN. During this conversation, I'm throwing some statistics at Logan, and we're getting his take on all of this kind of thing. Logan, here's an absolutely scary statistic. And, a lot of people don't want to think about long-term care or any kind of health care, really, and they don't spend a lot of time talking about it and certainly not planning for it. But an average couple will spend an estimated $245,000 on health care throughout their retirement years.
Ouch. Yeah, it's pretty expensive, right? I think that's probably pretty close, give or take. I've seen some surveys that are higher, some that are lower, but overall, just kind of showing there, I'm assuming it's talking about long-term care and healthcare costs altogether. But yeah, it's one of those things, Ron, where, like you said, for most of us out there, if you have, $400,000 in your 401k, right, and you're sitting there going, well, what happens if I went to long-term care? I could have a cost of $245,000. That would totally cripple my overall, net worth. It would also hey, that means I'm not leaving behind any money to the kids. That also means, hey, if my wife went into care and I still needed money to live, I would be close to out of money, right? So for a lot of us out there, that can be one of the biggest obstacles and hurdles that can come up down the road. And unfortunately, it comes up in a very bad time typically, right? Where you're not working anymore, you don't have any overtime you can get, things like that, right? So it's one of those things that could be very detrimental to the overall plan. So I think, for a lot of our plans we put together, I think having a long-term care component, whether that's a policy or whether that's a bucket of money we've set aside, or finding out how are we going to pay for that if it come up, is one of those things that I think is definitely a must in most retirement plans, because it is one of those that can absolutely throw a wrench in the overall plan and really, as you can see there, Ron, cause a potential to significantly impose its will on the plan.
One more thing I wanted to mention here, and that is longevity. Longevity is often times a very prominent part of our discussions here. People are just living longer these days. And I read earlier this week, Logan, that a 65-year-old man has a 78% chance of living 10 more years. A woman of the same age, a woman of 65, has an 85% chance of living 10 more years.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's pretty crazy, right? It's funny because these statistics are pretty close. And it's funny because looking at those, each time I read them, it's like, wow, that's a long time, right? For a lot of us out there, you think about, wow, I could live that long. And it's funny because I was actually doing a plan for a client coming on board about a month ago, Ron. It was funny. He's 64. Yeah. And he had said, you know what, when we build this plan out, we only need to look at, maybe 80. I'm probably not going to live that long, right? And I said, well, let's build it till 90, right? And he goes, 90? Oh, no, there's no way, right? And I go, well, let's look at it, because if you did, I was able to show him, hey, by if we plan till here, but you ended up living longer, you would run out of money, right? Or your plan would be in significant trouble, right? So I think having that type of advisor that's able to look more realistic, again, anything can happen. Could you go early? Absolutely. Could you live 20 years longer? Yeah. So I think just having that what if scenario kind of built in to make sure that we're planning for a potentially a longer retirement than most of us might think, right? So there's a lot of tricky things going on out there, and I definitely think these statistics are great to just kind of look at, right? I mean, even if they're, I always say statistics are what you make them, right? But even just looking at the general rule of concept there's a lot of unknowns about retirement, right? And like you said, Ron, many of you out there that are approaching retirement, you guys are aware of how to save money, how to put money away in a 401k, how to buy a stock, or how to do this, right? And I think you get to a certain point, like we always talk about climbing Mount Everest, right? It's a very dangerous thing, right? But believe it or not, most people don't get in trouble going up the mountain, right? They get in trouble coming down the mountain. And that's what we call that distribution phase, as you were saying, Ron, where it's all of a sudden like, okay, I've accumulated $200,000 or $1 million or $5 million, whatever the amount is. How do I get a distribution plan together to help, number one, last as long as I'm going to need it to last? Because again, like we talked about here, the statistics could be pretty long. How do we make sure we're not losing sleep over our retirement? How are we looking at long-term care? Do we pay off our mortgages, right? How do all of those things work? And making sure that we have a plan that's built to last and that is customized for our situation to give us the confidence we need to come down that mountain successfully. And that's exactly what we offer you guys at that discovery meeting, is just a chance. Again, we can't go over every single thing in the discovery meeting. It's really just a chance for us to get to know each other, us to gather some information about you, for you to gather some information about us, and just see if we're a good fit together and explain our process of how we help people just like you out there right now driving around or sitting on your porch, how we help you guys get to and through retirement.
888-823-PLAN. That's your number to call if you'd like to have a conversation with Logan Sadler about your individual situation. Heck, you might live to be 100. We really don't have much control over, how long we're going to live. And the number to call, once again, if you want to have a conversation about that whole longevity issue or, saving money on taxes in the future, whatever you want to talk about when it comes to retirement planning, it's 888-823-7526. That's 888-823-PLAN. Logan Sadler's number at Regari Financial. All you got to do today, call that number, leave a message with your name and your phone number. You'll get a call back first part of the week from the good folks at Regari. And then when you do arrange to have your discovery visit, you'll be talking with Logan Sadler. He's not going to put you off on anybody else. In fact, Logan looks forward very much to meeting you and getting to know you. It's all about relationships, as we've said before on this show. 888-823-PLAN, your number to call if you need help getting to and through retirement. Why not call that number today and make it happen? This is the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, and we'll be right back.
Fishing is an art, and any fisherman worth his salt knows the proper tools to land a whopper. You wouldn't take a cane pole to catch a bass, and unless you're just looking for a tranquil day on the boat, you probably wouldn't use shrimp for bait on the lake. The same can be said of your retirement. There are all sorts of financial products out there, and it's important to know which ones are the right fit for you. A random jumble of investments won't do you much good in retirement. Work with an advisor who knows how to fish, who sees the art within. A well-crafted financial plan will go a long way toward making a successful retirement. Make sure you're putting the right tools in your portfolio.
In Southern California, call Logan Sadler and the Regari Financial Team at 888-823-PLAN. That's 888-823-7526.
Are you tired of feeling like taxes are out of your control? Take charge of your financial future with Logan Sadler's 2023 Guide to Tax Planning. This comprehensive resource is more than just a collection of tax tips. It can help you optimize your Social Security, retirement savings, and investments. And with the help of Regari Financial and Insurance, you can rest assured that you're making the right decisions. Download the guide today and start taking control of your financial future. Just text the word ADVICE to the number 21000 and get the guide for free. Just text ADVICE to 21000.
This is the Financial Beat.
Welcome back to more of the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, the show that's all about getting you to and through retirement. Logan Sadler is the Vice President and Chief Investment Officer at Regary Financial, serving you in Southern California. Regary has a couple of different offices, Hemet and also Redlands. You can call 888-823-PLAN if you'd like to have a conversation with Logan. Get to know him. He can get to know you. Won't cost you anything at all, and there are no strings attached. 888-823-PLAN. 888-823-PLAN. Logan works with 3 different generations of client families at Regary Financial. Many of those clients have been around for a very long time. Regary Financial has been around for a very long time. And if you want a conversation with Logan, call this number, 888-823-PLAN. All you have to do today, maybe you've been putting it off for quite some time, all you have to do today is call, leave a message with your name and phone number. You'll get a call back from the good folks at Regary, and you will be on your way. Time to go to the mailbag. We have some great questions that have come in. It's like this every week. A lot of very smart people out there in Southern California. I'll tell you that much. Yeah.
Yep.
Our first question today is from Nadia in Vista. And Nadia says, my son is a year away from finishing high school. He has good grades, but has shown no interest at all in going to college. We do have some money saved for his tuition, but not enough to prevent him from needing to get some student loans to cover part of it, which is one of the reasons he cites for not wanting to go. How do I convince him that attending college is necessary for his future financial success?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the things about college, right, is I always say it's not for everybody, right? And there's a lot of good jobs out there where you can get trades and things like that. A lot of different jobs you could do out there without college, right? So I don't think it's if your son doesn't go to college, I don't think it's necessarily the end of the world. But I always say it does give you a huge advantage, right? Yep. And that's one of the things I'll talk to kids about a lot is if you do go to college. Again, it doesn't mean you're not going to do anything with your life. There's plenty of successful people that have not went to college, right? But I also say it does give you a little bit of an advantage out there in the job market, right? Especially depending on what industry you end up falling in. I've seen people out there that just have been able to advance further up the chain, maybe not even because they were better at the job, but maybe because they had that qualification of a college degree that you might have had to have to get that, right? So I would just kind of sit down and have a conversation like that, right? About how, it's again, your kid, you guys will do whatever you want, right? I always say, but it's always one of those things where I think having that little conversation of the back and forth as far as you don't have to go, but here's the benefits of going, right? I think it's something where the pros do outweigh the cons, and college is definitely a great thing for most people to go to, and I think it does give you a huge benefit by going. Like I said, just a competitive edge, I'll call it. And there's different ways to pay for it, like you were saying. There's student loans and different fundings and things like that. But as long as you do it responsibly and they want to go, I always say you don't want to force someone to go to college, and then they go and they don't pass, and you're paying for all these classes, or they're racking up debt, and they never even finish their degree, right? Yeah. You don't want that type of situation. So if they do go to college, you want to make sure it's something that they're going to stick with because they want to be there. And so I think having that conversation is super important.
Yeah, and as you said, there are options. I mean, heck, if you're not really sure that you're dedicated to going to 4 years of college, I mean, try a community college and see how that goes.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, you don't have to start off right away going to UCLA, right?
Exactly.
And I think that's super important, like you were saying, is just kind of finding the right direction for them. And starting off at a junior college, it's really affordable, and kind of maybe it might just open their eyes to some different things they want to do and give them just kind of give them that little head start.
Let's go to Idlewild for our next question. It's from Karen. And Karen says, my husband and I are both in our late 50s, and we recently moved to a new home for him to take a position that we know will only last for 2 years. I work from home, so it doesn't matter where I live. I don't really want to buy a house here because I'm not convinced it will be here longer than the 2 years that he has the job. But he doesn't care. He wants to buy and says we can just sell in 2 years if and when we move. Who's right in this situation? Now put on your marriage counseling hat.
Yeah, no kidding. Put me right in the middle, right? Which is typically where I get thrown. But it's okay because I'm always kind of I could definitely play both sides because it's important to understand that both people in some cases might have some very valid points, right? One of the things I would say is typically looking at this type of situation is 2 years is a short time frame, right? Where if you buy a house, I'd always say the pros of buying a house is that the real estate market in that area could increase, right? There could be potentially an increase in value. And there's also a chance it could decrease in value, right? So you got to run those pros and cons where, man, if you paid $400,000 for a house and in 2 years it was worth $350,000, would you not move because of that, right? Would it make you have to stay put? Or, if it went up, would you want to stay there now because you like the area, right? So there's always those kind of things where you got to balance. Typically, I don't mind a short-term rental. That probably sounds crazy for some advisors, but a lot of people think you need to buy. I don't know if that's always the case, especially trying out a new area. Like I was, me and my wife, when we moved to a new area, I actually rented for about 1.5 years, right? Just to kind of see, hey, do I like the area? Do we want to stay here? And if we do, what areas do we like, right? Because when you're new to an area, you don't always know the places to live or where you want to be, right? So I think renting in some cases has a lot of advantages to just trying to get your feet wet. One of the things you obviously have the risk of is if the real estate market appreciates, right, for over 2 years, and maybe you could have bought a house for $400,000 and now you wait 2 years and now it's $500,000, right? And you missed out on some equity there and things like that, but you might have also been able to outweigh the pros and cons. And if you decide to move, you're not tied to anything, right? You just kind of end your contract as the rental and you can hit the road. So I think I would want to have some further conversations and see what the financial situation looks like. Is it something where we have plenty of assets to purchase the house, where we're in a good situation, or would it be a stretch to purchase the house and run risk of us, maybe not being able to retire or things like that? So I want to dig further on the financial end, but just kind of understanding there's definitely some pros and cons to both, but a little bit further of a conversation might be able to decide whether it's better to buy or to rent.
Logan has to wear several hats in this business. And,
yes.
Marriage counseling hat is just one of them. So, Karen, thank you very much for the question. Again, follow up with a phone call if you would, and maybe you and your husband can come in and have a conversation with Logan about all this and get into much more details. 888-823-PLAN. One more question today in the mailbag. It's from Bill in Lake Arrowhead. And Bill says, ever since we paid off our house, we don't have many tax deductions anymore. Is this bad? Should we be doing something so that we have deductions that we can take?
Yeah, unfortunately, Bill, this is a common thing, right? Where in just a lot of today's tax code, there's just not a lot of areas for extra deductions and things like that, right? One of the reasons I'll tell clients in some cases not to pay off the home, and again, in some cases, is because of keeping a little bit of a deduction. Again, it's not huge, but it is something in some cases. But with that said, it is nice to have a paid-off house, right? It's nice where you don't have that monthly expense going out. Now you just basically got maintenance costs, property taxes, things like that. So, there's definitely pros and cons to it. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot you would be able to do. Again, depending on if you're a business owner or there's other types of structures where we could facilitate other types of deductions, it's hard to say without knowing more on your situation. But typically, yeah, it's just a bummer nowadays where there's not a whole lot of areas where you can increase different deductions and things like that, especially after the home's paid off. Again, not saying you made a bad move at all, because in some cases it does still make sense to pay off the home, just depending on the rate and things like that in your plan. But unfortunately, you're in a spot where I think a lot of people are currently, and so I would probably, again, give us a call. We could talk further and see if there's anything we could do to come up with some ideas.
Logan, take just a moment, if you would, here at the end of the show and remind everybody what happens when they do call the number that I'm going to give out here in just a couple of minutes here, and they sit down and have a conversation with you. What's it going to be like?
Yeah, so basically what happens, like you said, Ron, is they call that number and basically you get to leave a voicemail. You can tell us your name, your phone number, things like that, and what you're, just tell us what you're looking for. And basically somebody from my office is going to give you a call back, typically Monday morning, right? So you get a call back right away, and basically they'll give you time to come in and sit down with me at one of our offices or via Zoom or a phone call, whatever's more convenient for you. And what we do is we spend about an hour and we'll take a deep dive into your situation. Again, it doesn't cost you anything, and typically part of our process is how we work is I'm going to ask you a lot about your situation, because again, a lot of you are typically approaching retirement and going through some difficult changing of tides, right? So I think really we spend a good amount of time just trying to get to know you, right? And obviously we give you lots of information on who our firm is, a lot about our history, and really how our planning process and processes work here. And we'll go over, we have basically a 3-step process before we ever bring on a client. So I always tell clients, when you come in at meeting 1, we never do business. You're not coming on board with our firm at that point, right? You're not going to be asked to make any decisions. All we're doing is we want to see if we're a good fit. I want to understand some more about your situation. You'll be able to ask us a lot of questions and things like that we'll probably be able to answer a lot of them at the meeting. And then if we decide, it's a pretty good fit, let's see what meeting 2 looks like, and let's see what we can come up with. We'll take all of your statements and things like that, and basically we'll compile reports and build a plan for you to go over. So like I said, that's meeting 2. And then at meeting 3, we would decide if, you know what, we have a good plan built, you like it, and we feel we're a good fit to work together, then we can do business together. But I always tell clients the best part about it is when you come in for that discovery meeting is you're not being asked to make any decisions. We're really just kind of going over your situation and again, introducing yourself to us and just really kind of seeing where you're at and where we can provide some value to help transition you, again, to and through retirement is our specialty. So that's what you can expect at the meeting. Not high pressure, no sales tactics, really just kind of what are you trying to accomplish, and really are we the firm to help get you there?
888-823-PLAN, 888-823-7526. That number for Regary Financial. Remember, 2 convenient offices, one in Hemet, one in Redlands. Logan Sadler is the Vice President and Chief Investment Officer, and he is ready, willing, and able to talk to you about your individual situation. And is not going to charge you anything and not going to obligate you to do anything at all beyond that initial get-together. It's called a discovery visit. 888-823-PLAN. 888-823-PLAN. Maybe you've listened to our show for a very long time and just haven't gotten around to making that phone call. Why not make today the day that happens? 888-823-PLAN. Logan Sadler and the good folks at Regary Financial are all ready to help you get to and through retirement. Logan, it's been my pleasure to hang out with you today. Good show.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Ron. And I felt like we covered a lot of, as we try to, right? A lot of broad and interesting topics. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the show, and I look forward to seeing you guys here again next week with another one. And me and Ron will try to bring you some laughs and some information, and you guys have a good one, and we'll see you then.
Again, next week on another edition of the Financial Beat, Logan Sadler. One more time, the number at Regary Financial is 888-823-PLAN.
Regary Financial and Insurance Services, Inc. and BD Financial Group, Inc. are separate and independent entities. The information provided in this presentation is presented for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, investment, tax, or legal advice, nor does it constitute an offer or solicitation to buy or sell any securities.